Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast. And I'll probably jump straight away in because I'm sitting with someone that has absolutely amazing, warm, settled energy. And I'm sure our conversation will be more about energy today and just feeling into probably the activity we do and feeling into our body. I'm sure we will talk a lot about body. And I would love to welcome you, Ina, and give you space for introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about yourself. Welcome.
Thank you, Alex. Um, well, I guess what I do is I really help people to go within and connect to their inner self, and that is whether they have a health issue and they need to understand how did this come to pass, so to speak? What actually happened? What are the things that occurred in my life to lead me to this situation in my life, and how can I then start to transform it? Which is even a more important question, but you need to know and understand. But also, how do I have more access to my intuition, to my purpose, to guidance in my life by going witin.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's essentially what I do. And then it moves into so many different topics
Yeah.
from relationships to business to spirituality to just to self love, and self safety within self and self care. And so
Yeah.
whatever angle somebody's struggling with, that we can go within and start to unpack and transform is what I essentially do.
Yeah, I love that. And probably everyone who is listening already understand why you're here because I just got a message from someone who was listening to podcasts last week and it says the person says that it's amazing how every conversation that you have with any kind of leaders, any business owner or coach, everything ends up to talking about how you need to start with yourself, right? And when we talk about how we need to start with ourselves, it's actually really truly going within and understand who you are. Because more we understand who we are, more we understand other people, and it actually brings us closer to people. I believe that because I experienced that myself. So it's very interesting, and what I'm really intrigued is because you using your method is intuitive, basically intuitive healing, and really going within. So how do you? This is probably a question that a lot of people will ask because I'm thinking about my audience or clients, and it's like how you actually bring the person or what people need to do or how they can do it to connect with themselves or within when they are so detached or disconnected, because a lot of people are in this hurry mode, so like it's just busy busy busy, and I believe we kind of start to live on autopilot and we disconnect. It's almost like you disconnect from your body, from the feelings. You're not listening what really your body needs. And when it goes for 30 years or more, I feel like there's a really hard way to get back. And I want to hear everything what you can tell us about this because I think that's the most important part, right? Like how to actually make yourself feel again.
Yeah, such a huge question, and I think it's an interesting one depending on where you come from and where you were born. So I was going to ask you where you're actually from.
I'm from Slovakia
Oh,
originally.
wow. So interesting, because I have a really powerful story about Slovakia and how
Wow.
it
I
changed
can't wait to
something
hear.
in myself. Um, but what I want to say is that depending on where you come from in terms of this connection, it is very particular and specific. And so people who, if they're listening from Europe, for instance, they're going to have a much easier time mostly connecting to their feelings, because the actual European countries and even Eastern European countries have this sense of we need to connect to our emotions, and it is totally fine to express and share your emotions. And then if somebody's listening from an Asian country, and I've been there and I've taught in Japan in particular, but I've been around different Asian countries, and had many clients, it's much more tense. And yeah, I remember teaching in Singapore, and it's kind of like much more controlled around emotions,
That's the word. Yeah, I love that.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and then when we come to, Australia and the US, again, quite different. In Australia, we're very self-protective. And so we put on this, like, I am happy type of, we're happy-go-lucky, but although a lot of people are very stressed. But there is a real disconnection from our feelings. It's like we're so many people who live in Australia, and we're both in Australia at the moment, are in their heads. And it's like we're trying to be nice people, but we're not necessarily very connected internally.
yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes, to be honest, sometimes I literally sit there and I watch European shows, and my partner, he's actually English, and he'll come and he'll go, why is there so much shouting and like, what are you watching? And it's not in the in English, and I'll be like, I'm watching a French show just so that I can and he's like, why? And I said, because it actually makes me feel calm, like literally, because I feel like it's honest. There's an
Yeah.
honesty, that comes in, and I feel like the more you put on a mask and the more you're like la 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 happy, the more internally you're actually shut down. And so there is this massive journey that happens, that you need to where you need to reconnect. And what I feel like, when they want to go within, they want to well, firstly, their mind is going crazy. And if they haven't practiced it, and they're going, and even if they have often,
Yeah.
and because they're not necessarily really really connected to their body. And to me, it literally starts with movement. You have to move your body. And
Yeah.
so I always encourage people to start with just shaking one arm. Literally shake one arm for about 30 seconds, and then yeah, like, and then stop and sense the difference between one side of the
Mm.
body and the other, and then do the other arm. And then what I encourage people to do, as they're standing, is to scan their body standing, and really kind of, after they shake their body, to connect, and then potentially even do it again. And this time, actually, and I talk about the left and the right sides of the body being quite different, and actually connecting to the left side of the body and sensing that the left side of the body is all about your kind of internal, gentler self, where we'll call it maybe more internal feminine, where it's more of an intuitive self. It's more about self love, self care. How do I, what goes on inside of me internally? And I asked them to look at that and actually explore, where am I at in terms of that feminine self? Am I stuck? Am I really kind of expressive and expanding? And like you said, I want to bring it back to that, where as we get older, it's almost like, I'm going to explain this from a metaphor. And my metaphor is this: that when you're born, wherever you are born, there's all these opportunities and possibilities, right?
Yeah.
And in some countries more than others, I'm gonna say, because I don't know if you have the
Of course.
same, if you're born, let's say, as a girl in you know in the Middle East. I don't
Yeah.
know enough, so I'm just gonna say, but there is possibilities for internal life, for an internal self-expression. And what actually happens is that it's like, I feel like we're born into this metaphoric castle, and we're very unique as a soul. And each part of this metaphoric castle has these doors that are open, and and allows us to express ourselves in a very particular, specific way. But as we start to get older, we start to shut down these particular doors of this metaphoric castle. And we actually stop knowing ourselves and we start to become what is safe to become, right? What is actually safe to to be,
Mm.
in terms of that environment that we're in. And very often I find that people go from this really creative state to being in their 20s and being in this two-bedroom apartment, literally expressing, you know, not even a quarter of who they are.
Mm.
And so when we start to understand ourselves, again through this feminine masculine lens, for instance, we start to go, so if my feminine's very internal, my masculine's very external. And the masculine, the right side of the body, is about, if I could be really, really creative in my life, what could I achieve? What would be really, truly possible for
Mm.
me to achieve if I really listen to my heart, which has the seeds of my soul's purpose? I mean, I think everybody kind of agrees in some ways that if we don't connect to the heart, we don't know. And
Mm.
most of us disconnect. So, why, again, coming back to the exercise, why I say to people, why is it important to do an exercise like this? Is because it's like we need to create a connection first with a feminine creativity to even get into the body, to open the heart, right? Like to reconnect to what is going on internally,
Mm.
and then we need to understand what are we struggling with. And often it is communication, it is relationships, it is struggle with money, whatever it is, and it's quite external. And so by connecting with both and recognizing, I will then say to people, okay, whatever's blocking you, let's start with letting that go. And we might start with the most basic kind of raw experience of, let's just, place our hands on a part of your body and start to acknowledging sensations. Acknowledge sensations that you have. And then let's move it out of the body and shake it out and let it go, so that more of you, of your soul, can actually get out of your head and move more into the body. Because we don't have space when we have trauma after trauma after trauma blocking everything,
Mm.
and so the more
Yeah.
space, the more connection.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I just want to say to everyone who is just listening to audio, I love Ina is very much moving around and her hands going from left to right. I love that. So it's like you can feel the energy and you can feel what she's talking about. So just telling everyone, just jump on YouTube if you want to see the video because I think that will be fun. I think that's I love that. I love that to start with your body and start, moving and feeling sensations and recognize it. I think that's really important. And okay, so let's say I connect with the body. I believe that's already a healing process, right? Or is something that is already connecting us. But what if maybe I don't even want to connect with myself because I like it's scary, right? Like so many people are
Yeah.
scared, like what is going to be out there, right? Like so how to deal with that? Like when I know I want to, push out there something. I want to heal. I want to probably get onto top of this and understand what is my purpose. What is that what I want in life, but I'm still scared.
Well, I think that's actually the answer, in what you're saying, is that you start with going, what is the resistance? What is the resistance that I have? And the fear is your resistance. And maybe you start to explore it from your mind by going, so what is it that I'm really, really and truly afraid of? What am I afraid of that I'm going to find out? And if I can actually consciously hold that, right? And go, well, maybe I'm afraid that I'm going to find out that, something like, what are people most afraid of? That they're not good enough. And so
Mm.
what if I find that out that I'm not good enough? So if I was, going through this with somebody, I would go, well, firstly, let's break this down. And so I actually think that understanding is so, so vital.
Yeah.
And I have this pet hate to do with healing work and transformational work, and that is generalizing. I cannot stand generalizations because I feel like that's where people get
Mm.
stuck.
Yeah.
And so I would go, all right. So firstly, where you're afraid of something, where is the fear? Just recognize where is the fear
Yeah.
inside the body. Let's connect to that part of the body. And because I understand the body from how it communicates and what is stored in each part, I'm kind of like, I already know a lot about the story. If somebody says, okay, my throat or my heart, it'll be like a different set of questions, right, around this
Yeah.
fear. So let's say somebody said, I have fear and I'm feeling it around the throat. I think I asked somebody recently, and they said that. And it's like, so to me, straight away, I'm reflecting on that is a specific fear, and I would say it's not that all of you is afraid. It's only the part where the fear is at,
Yeah.
and if you have fear in the throat, it's not the same fear that you have in your heart, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not the same fear that you have in your
Yeah.
stomach or your solar plexus. So I'd go, all right, well, let's explore that fear and let's take that energy out of it so rather than the fear actually taking over you and your life, how about you become in charge of it, because it's not all of
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I feel like when you break it down and you make it smaller, it becomes very different. And so let's say it's the throat. I remember when I was 22, I met a really very successful businessman slash teacher slash author. And I said he asked me a question, and he said, what is it that you really, really want to do in your life? And I said, I want to teach and I want to help people. So I was 22. And he said, what stops you? And again, I was very clear about my fear. And I said, it's rejection. It's rejection for when I'm communicating to people and then to be shut down and rejected. And he said to me, all right, go home and write down 100 reasons how rejection can literally help you move forward and transform. How that the thing that you think is going to hold you back is going to help you. And I actually did that. I went, I started with going, again, I had resistance to it. And I
Yeah.
started going, I don't know how I'm going to get to 100, but I'm just going to start. And I think a huge part of what I'm saying is, take that fear and break it down and then go, where can I start with it? Right? What is the starting point, and how do I make it smaller and really, really clear? And so again, if we come back to the throat, it's like, well, the throat is about communication.
Mm.
So what is it that you're afraid of saying, and to whom? And maybe we find that you're actually not that afraid now, but you were afraid when you were younger, or maybe somebody shut you down, and we need to transform that. You know, that experience that where you were shut down into something that where you might have made an agreement with yourself saying, I'm never going to get hurt again, so I'm never going to be shut down. And
Yeah.
maybe we need to change those things first before you can feel comfortable in connecting deeper into your own body.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I love what you're saying because I believe that there's a lot of work we do around chakras as well. And I love how actually they are really truly stacking the energy, or the energy doesn't flow there. And it's, like you can recognize it with fear. That's a beautiful tool to have to understand where to feel, do you feel the fear, and just really translate it into, okay, so what happened in my life, maybe in the past, which trauma, which situation is really influencing me. So everyone who is listening, maybe based on what Ina said, just really maybe just ask yourself, like, where it is, what is stopping me? What is that is holding me back? Because I think that's the most important part
Yeah.
or question in our life, like what is holding me back and how better I can move forward. And every day we try to find a better way, right? Like we are not perfect, and probably this journey is here until we die. So I always said
Yeah.
we always struggle with our challenges, and we try to improve them and go through them or read them with those challenges the way that we can unlock them and we can be more and more that person that was born and has all these doors, like you said beautifully, right? Like in castles ahead, and just really unlock all those blocks that we created on the way. So there was something small that I experienced. I was just walking and I was thinking, what is the feeling? It was interesting because we get stuck into business worries. We need to pay this, we need to pay that, we need to pay people, we need to organize things, and we need to pay deposits. And now it's just like all this financial stuff. Then you're looking at, like we have these people, we need to take care of these people. So you're looking at relationships, and there's always something to worry about, right? Especially when you run your own show, I think it becomes like you want to be sure that you're taking care of people. You want to be sure that you have enough cash flow and you're paying everyone. And you have to be sure that the delivery is the best. Like there is a lot of things, right? Like on top of everything is very different when you're employed and when you're employee, employer. So it's, I think, just having that worry, I realized that so many times we take responsibility without even needing to be responsible for everything. And that was funny realization, because I think we take on like a lot of guys, they always take on this role of I'm a provider. I'm that person. But when we're moving now in this generation, it doesn't really say or identify provider based on if it's male or female, right? Based on gender. And it's very interesting because sometimes it's opposite, sometimes it's the other way around. So how hard it is, to let go of those responsibilities and roles. And I had this moment when I was like, oh my God, how I felt when I was like 15. And I just felt this light, in body. And I realized that, oh wow, like actually I can feel that way because I felt that way when I was young, right? So I can actually go back and feel that way because I don't need to have heavy feeling of responsibility. I can make it light. I can still walk through the life, take care of people and take care of everyone and think about everyone and do the best job I can, but it doesn't need to be that heaviness of feeling of that, like the negative side or negative feeling of responsibility. So what do you think about those when you're looking at a healing, right? And there's always everything, even positive in our life, it actually brings this negative feeling. It's like a heaviness or burden. So how we can kind of stripe, or like I don't know if it's like if you can even take off some, sort of like when you're peeling the onion, right? Like just taking off some masks, some things, some layers, and just feel lighter. Do you have any like technique or maybe advice how we can do it if you don't know yet where to go, how to start, or if you don't want to talk to coach yet, right? We want to try something for ourselves. Is that something that you will recommend?
I do, and I actually think that you kind of like this. What you're saying, I really felt this also in myself, deeply, where I had two long-term partners, and I was the one who was always who had the vision, who was kind of, I guess in some ways more masculine in the experience in the relationship, and who was bringing in the money and who was holding this burden of it and directing everything. And then I remember when I separated from, my second husband, I just went, I don't want to live like this. Actually, I really don't. I want to either be with somebody where it's shared, but I don't want to be the one who's doing it the whole time. And I started the process for me personally by making fun and friendships a priority. So I
Love it.
literally, and I, because I realized that I really hadn't in my
I
life,
love it.
and I was like, and it was during the time of lockdown, so it wasn't the easiest time to go, okay, because I literally just moved from another city to to a new
Yeah.
place, and I was like, I didn't actually have a lot of friends, And when I had originally moved, I spent most of that year traveling and doing, my work. And then I was like, well, now I can't travel and I'm stuck here at home. And I really need to, I need to prioritize some other things. And
Mm.
I actually, and I want to say this because I went out of my way, and I'm somebody who a lot of people know of because of my work, especially the kinds of people that I want to be friends with, right? Which are really open minded people. And my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, has been around for a long time. For those, who are familiar with it, which there's a lot of people, especially in Australia, who are familiar with it and use it daily. And so I was like, okay, this is going to be really interesting. And, but I got to chill out, I'm just, I cannot be constantly in this state of carrying these heavy burdens and also making friends, when you're 40 is an interesting one,
It's harder.
especially when people actually know you, right? So it couldn't just be like anybody. And it was a really funny process where kind of when I try these things, I get clarity, I get clear on what's missing in my life, and I start really putting it out kind of energetically. I have a
Yeah.
vision of it, and I start feeding the vision of what I want instead of what I don't want.
Yeah.
And I remember literally connecting with people from this one lady. We became really close friends. She sent me this random message on Facebook, and I went, I don't know why, but I just need to connect with her. And and I said to her, hey, can we catch up? And then I said to her, so we just caught up, and then several months later, when COVID hit, I went, I'm gonna connect with her again, but I don't really know her. I've met her once, but I feel it, and so I connected with her, and I was like,
Yeah.
look, I separated from my husband, and I'm like, I'm really going through this review of my life, and I need to connect with people, and I need to connect with with people who I have some trust with, and we need to go and connect to nature. And she kind of went, all right, I have another friend. How about we start going for walks together? And we literally did that for three times a week,
Nice.
and we would communicate and we would connect and we would hug each other and we would like literally hold each other at different times in that way. And we would start we kind of together co-created, but we would express and discuss and connect to nature, and and then I saw males doing as well, like the same. Like there were male groups. My son was, he just came back from traveling around, and he was struggling again with everything, with this lockdown, and he started connecting with and going for these walks with men,
Yeah.
and just starting to talk about the struggles. And I think it's that. And I want to say there was one other thing that was, because you mentioned the chakras, that was really interesting for me, because I remember thinking I need to reflect on, because for me, I'm very aware of archetypes, so like parts of us
Mm.
that are connected to different chakras. And in particular, the child part of us that is very creative, that had all the access to all the
Yeah.
rooms in a so-called metaphoric castle, is kind of the part of us that gives us that vitality and creativity. And I realized that for me, in some ways, my inner child was intertwined with my ex-husband, who was quite a narcissist. And and part of that dynamic was that it's almost like we played mother and child for each other,
Yeah.
and and the perfect soulmate. And so I realized that my inner child was kind of like, oh, I'm disconnected from you because this was my, I thought this was my person, and this was the person that was really in protecting me, and I had to kind of reclaim that part of myself. And in that process, I remember actually recognizing that when I was with my ex-husband, he would always say, you know, you're so serious. Because when, like you were saying, when we're heavy and when we're the ones who,
Yeah.
you know, are guiding the business and creating things, it's like we are serious because there's serious things to get through and you forget to play.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, he kept trying to, you know, encourage me to be playful, but I couldn't with him. Like, I literally couldn't in that environment with him. It didn't feel safe. And as I was in this, like, I'm going to connect to different people and I'm going to make friends, I ended up meeting this man. And one of my friends actually, who I'd known in Melbourne, in the city where I lived, had come for, you know, a bit of time to Queensland because he had family here. And I said to him, come and help me in the workshop. And he brought a friend to help. And so I met this man, and instinctively I was like, this is not for a relationship, but somehow I need to kind of explore and get to know this man, because he had this energy and vitality of this child, like of the most joyous, creative child. And so I'm getting to, you know, this very important point here. And I felt very, very safe with him. It was just, you know, immediately as a, you know, as this friend. And after I finished the workshop, he and I ended up connecting this funny way. But he literally a couple of days, I think maybe 2 days later, he came to my house and we started, you know, chatting and going for walks together and you know, kind of going to events and dinners and so on. And I was very clear. I was like, this is my opportunity. This person at this point in his life, it's like he owns this genuinely joyful child, like so joyful. And it's something that I need to, like literally, I need to be in the energy field. I need to be around somebody who's that naturally joyful in his life right now. And is, like you said, is creating his reality. Like he was buying his first house. And it was this amazing house, you know, that he was going to transform. And he's doing it from this like discovery, being teachable, discovering complete openness. Yeah, and I actually said to him at one point when he bought the house, I said, "Can I come over for a few days? I need to be. It's like I need to be around you. I need more time to watch you, so that that part of me, that child in me, can actually watch that and go, this is what it looks like." And it wasn't even that like fake it till you make it, because I actually don't believe in that. But it was like giving me an example that I
Yeah.
can feel, right? And that I can not copy, but I can discover within myself. And it was really, really interesting because when I did, not long after, I actually met my partner that I have now, and he is hilarious. Like, he honestly, like, he could have been a comedian. He should have been a comedian. And you know, it was this point where he would like sometimes we'd go again through cycles. We have serious cycles, but we would go through cycles where every day he would just make so many jokes where I'm like, come on, please just be serious for a minute. But at the same time, you know, I'm like, stop making me laugh. But at the same time, because I feel like something in me changed where I'm like, I will never, I'm not taking full responsibility again for finances, you know, in my relationships and life. He came in, and I didn't know at the beginning because I was like, I don't want to work with my partner again. Um, but something happened where I had a little crash with the person that I was working with, and my partner Matt came in. He went, you know what? How about, like, I'm actually good at a lot of stuff that you don't know that I'm good at. And I was like, oh no. And he's like, I'm good at stuff that you're not good at, which is a lot of masculine stuff and business stuff. And I really felt, because I changed this in myself, literally
Yeah.
just by being around people who were different, you know, and not so serious. He went, how about I take all the things you hate doing, which is technology, which is
Yeah.
accounting, which is like organizing teams and people, and you know, and you do what you're really good at. And like you help me when I need with writing, and I do what I'm really good at and
Yeah.
help you. And it became this like this incredible thing where we combined our vision, and sometimes he has a way bigger vision than I do, you know. And I
Yeah.
feel that step one to something like that, because I've experienced both, is going, which part of me is really, really stuck, and how can I find those examples?
Yeah, I love that. And it's basically the opposite of what we do naturally, right? Like we get triggered by people because that's us, right? It's almost like a mirror. But now when you take it from perspective of who will be inspiring for what I'm missing and actually watch people in their natural energy. And I love that when you say, like being around people is like I want to awaken my child, inner child. So
Yeah.
let's actually watch someone being super happy and I love that because I think it's almost like observing and seeing the energy and feeling the energy like who we want to become.
I think traveling, traveling to other countries,
Oh
I
yes.
found, when I know you said you lived in different countries, and I've lived in, various countries, and traveling and actually seeing things from a completely different perspective. I found that to be so powerful, because, and I'd literally get on the plane and I'd think to myself, because at one point I just traveled nonstop teaching as well. And I was like, who am I going to be when I come back? I don't know who I'm going to become.
I
What
love
is
it.
going to be my perception of the
Yeah.
world and what is possible when
Yeah.
I actually come back?
I love that. So I think
Yeah.
there is a lot of different things. Like I love traveling. So I totally agree. I think seeing different cultures, learning from different people, and even language, just listening to language, how that
Yeah.
sound, how you feel around people when you don't understand them actually. So that's such a beautiful experience. Thank you so much, Ina. I feel like I want to talk to you and sit somewhere on a couch with you. So what I would say, I will probably try to do in person meeting one day and have
Yes.
a chat and maybe record something in person because I love your energy and it's so nice to be around it and it's very jumpy and exciting. So I definitely
But
love that.
before we finish, um, I've got to share the Slovakian experience with you
Okay,
because I
perfect.
feel like I put that seed and I started with that. Um, it was really interesting and powerful for me, especially also with somebody where people do business, right? And this thing of rejection. So this lady, I had literally never thought about Slovakia until this lady started contacting me. It was just not something that that came into my, into my vision, I guess. And she started contacting me, and she was like, "You have to come to Slovakia. You have to come and teach in Slovakia." And I was thinking, you know what? Sorry, but I'm really busy and it's not on my radar, so to speak. And she just wouldn't stop. And I actually really love people who are extremely motivated. I feel like there's very few people who are who don't take no for an answer.
Yeah,
I honestly love that. And she was one of the people. She's like, not taking no for an answer.
love it.
And I went, you know what? I love people like that because I've had to be like that in a way. So I'm actually going to. I am gonna do it. Right? I'm gonna come to Slovakia, and I had so my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, was published in Australia and a few other countries, I think, at the time. And it was just starting to come out in various countries in Europe and in the US. And when I got to Slovakia, and she had organized this big event for me, it was beautiful. And you spoke about language. I have to say, I kind of came in to the to the event, and I spoke to several people who were helping out, and she'd organized a translator, and I didn't realize that I was born in Belarus, how how connected the languages were, Slovakian and the language I learned, which was Russian. And as the translator was translating for me, I could feel we were not in alignment. We were not, and there was over 150 people in the room. We were just not like really hearing each other. And I just had this feeling, and I very rarely do this type of thing. After about half an hour, people were struggling. I went, okay, I'm going to stop this and I'm going to go. I said, we're going to have a very quick bathroom break and I'm going to figure something out here where the energy is not aligning. And I went and directly to the person, and the person, there was one person in the room who translated my book. And I came to her and I said, look, this is not about being nice, but for some reason, like you've translated my book, you understand my work, you understand my languaging. I need you to be the translator for the rest of this for me. And she was like, oh my God, I wasn't prepared, I didn't know. I was like, I'm sorry, but you're the person that needs to translate and everything's going to flow when you do. And it was awkward, but she did. And it was like the workshop started to move and everyone started to understand things. And so that was really profound. And then after we finished, the organizer, she said to me, all right, well, now we're going to do a book signing. And I was like, oh my God, no. I'm so tired because I'm like, you don't understand how much I've been traveling, how much I've been teaching. The last thing I want to do is a book signing, because also with book signings, you could have a lot of people or you can have nobody. And
Yeah.
I was thinking, the book's literally just come out in Slovakia, like maybe a month ago or so. I cannot see how we're going to have a big line, or a lot of people, and I'm just tired. And she went, no, and there's somebody who's going to interview you, you have to come. And so I went to this, thinking there's going to be no one there, and I'm just going to make myself even more tired. Because then I had to get up at 5 in the morning to go to
Yeah.
do a TV interview as well. And I was like, this is nuts. And so I get there and I'm walking in and there's this, it was in a shopping center, and, and there was this massive line, and I was like, is there an event here today that, that is really important? Because obviously, like, there's something else going here. There's a massive line. And she went, no, it's for you. And I went,
That's so beautiful.
yeah, this is crazy. And then the first person that came to me was a nurse, and she was in tears, and she said to me, oh my God, Inna, I have been using your book since it came out. And she said, I've used it on myself, I've used it on my family, I've used it on my clients, and it is amazing and it works. And she said, it's like, I've waited for 4 hours to be the first person to see
Oh,
you
that's so
because
cool.
I had to be here. And I just sat there. And why I'm saying this is that Slovakia at that point had never entered my mind, up until this
Mm.
lady contacted me. It's like when we do something that is purposeful, that is profound, we actually often don't know. We have no idea what was the impact on the people around the world. And we often sit and we doubt, because I doubted,
We
and
all do. Yeah.
yeah, and as opposed to going, I'm going to doubt. But what if I doubt the doubt and I still do it and it is scary and I could be rejected? But what if there is a place around the world and I will never know many places where me taking that action, living more of my purpose, will actually really fully change people's lives?
I love that. And I honestly want to say, first of all, thank you very much for doing what you do. And thank you very much for being brave enough to follow your purpose and your vision and your gifts, because that's the hardest thing to do in the world, right? Because we are all driven by, we need to make money and pay bills and all this stuff that is kind of cutting off the edges of those, gifts we have. And we kind of comply, right, at the end, because it is harder to choose the journey of purpose and real gifts and really go and manifest you in the world. And I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the time that you spend with me here. So thank you so much for that. And for everyone who is listening, I believe you want to connect with Ina. So where we can find you and where we can buy your book, because that will be my next step.
Um, well, the best thing to do is for people to actually go to my website, which is innasegal.com, INNASEGAL.com. And if you want to go a little further into my work, I would really encourage you to start with a masterclass, because I have free masterclasses where I go through all the connected pieces and then I give you a process to do.
Okay.
And it's very easy to remember, innasegal.com/masterclass.
Okay.
If you want to find my book, it's literally anywhere online. That if you just got to type it in, it'll come up. But also, I really encourage people to go to bookshops, because I just want to support bookshops. I want to support authors. I want to support that way, because it makes such a difference to
Yeah.
people who write and also people who have that job. If you actually go to the bookshop, and even if it's not there, they can order it quite quickly.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.